Alrighty then. It's Deconverted Man. So junk DNA, Answers in Atheism was talking to this guy, CBrown. Uh, he's a creationist guy and very frustrating to listen to the conversation, but, you know, and I had some thoughts I wanted to join in. I have an analogy that I thought might penetrate his head. I don't know. It's I'll comment on some things later, but let me just do the analogy because that's for him, and maybe it will help. I don't know. So, in regards to like things surviving or not surviving, and it being random, arbitrary, however you want to look at that, whatever words you want. So, there's this game that I've played before, and you start with a sentence, and then the next person draws that sentence, and then the next person looks at that drawing and writes down a sentence of what that drawing is, and then it keeps going until the end, and then everything is posted, and we all enjoy the pictures that and sentences that develop. And as we played it, because we played this on these forums, and we played it a lot, and I noticed that certain things would always survive. Certain concepts and ideas would make it no matter what. Surfing seemed to always survive because it was easy to draw the ocean. It was easy to draw a surfboard. And so surfing survived. Giraffe survived. Everybody could draw a giraffe. So we had a giraffe surfing, and it was like that survived the whole way through every time. So why? Well, you get a random group of people together, whatever their skill set is on drawing, and there will be an emergent pattern of things that will always work until the end of this game, and things that will never work, things that will never make it all the way through. They're too vague or complicated. Also, you're not supposed to write words on the drawing. You're not supposed to use letters or numbers, right? Which of course people cheated every now and then, but you're not supposed to. And there's a game called Drawful that I'll play where it gives you a prompt and you're supposed to draw that prompt, and then people are supposed to guess what you drew. Although it gives you multiple choice. So those ones were more abstract. But so we would have giraffe surfing, and the sun is out or the moon is out, and that survived. Those concepts were simple. Everyone could draw them, and you don't know what those concepts are when you first start the game with your random collection of people. You have no idea what concepts will work or won't work for that group. So you start with a simple sentence, and you at the end of the game, you then collect all the drawings, you put them up, you get all the sentences, and it's a great deal of fun to play. And you see the mutation of the drawing and the sentences, because people interpret the drawing, then people have to interpret the sentence, and so on and so forth. And so there's certain concepts that even if you had different people from different, I guess you'd have to do translation if you had different languages, but it could probably work for that too. There's certain things that will survive the group and certain things that won't. And you don't know what it is when you start the game. You have no idea that giraffe will make it to the end every time. That's what we experienced in our sample group. We also experienced surfing would survive every time. Sunshine, the sun, that full sun always survived. Rain was somewhat hit and miss. Sometimes rain would survive, sometimes it wouldn't. So at the end of that, you go, okay, well, giraffe must have been perfectly designed to have made it through all of these people to the end. Giraffe had to have been chosen deliberately. Well, at the start, we didn't. But once we saw that giraffe would survive, then we could select giraffe at the start, and we would know it would always work. But we didn't know what would work until we ran it through that process. It's only at the end of the process where we're able to see patterns emerge of what survived and what didn't survive that selection process. And that is, I don't know how equivalent that is to DNA and protein and molecules. Probably not that analogous, but I think it's good enough for an analogy. The concept giraffe or whatever, you don't know going in it's going to last, but it does. And then now that you know it works, you might want to think, well, you deliberately picked that at the start. No, we didn't. We didn't know. There's other things out there for human psychology that are tests that have been done frequently. And one I remember is I think you're supposed to count to 3 out loud, and then you're supposed to say the first a color and a tool, and what's the first color and tool color of the tool you think of. And most people picked red hammer out of however many people they asked this. Not everybody did, but a large grouping of people picked red hammer for whatever reason. And so you don't know going in that that's what's going to happen when you ask people this question, but you find out that there's certain concepts that survive and others that don't. And you look at language. Language too works in a similar way, where it evolves and changes over time as long as it's a living language. Once it's a dead language, it doesn't change at all. So we use Latin for a lot of technical things because Latin is dead and doesn't change. Ad baculum is a Latin word, ad and baculum. And this means appeal to the cudgel or appeal to stick. And we translate it to appeal to force. And this is when, you threaten somebody to do the thing. That's not a logical argument. It's an ad baculum. It's an ad baculum, however you want to say it. Ad baculum, switch back and forth, whatever. But that has only one meaning. Ad baculum only means that one thing, and it cannot mean anything else. But then in English, take the word love. And Greeks had it pretty good. I think we need to adopt the Greek loves, because there was philios and eremos and agape and all these different terms for love that meant one thing. And in today's day and age, you might say to your friend, I love you as a friend. And you have to quantify it. Like maybe they'll know what you mean. But, it's like but if there was a separate word for friendship love, like in Greek, you wouldn't have to quantify it every time. Some words have lost meaning over time. The word humbug doesn't really have any meaning at all, except for in relation to Christmas Carol movie. So it's not a swear word. It's not thought of it as that way. But at one time, it was like, fuck. It was like, a big swear word or the N word, whatever. It was really bad to say. And other words mean different things, different cultures. The word fag in one culture is cigarette, but here is a slur. And there's an equivalence there of evolution and change over time that is, I suppose you could say to some extent, random-ish or based on preferences of people and society as a whole, because people working together as a whole will create this thing that's called the zeitgeist. And this is a very interesting idea. Happy Thanksgiving, skeptical philosophy, or skeptic philosophy. What did I say? Skeptical philosophy. Anyways, the zeitgeist is like in the air, floating around, or these ideas that everybody knows about. And somebody did a video about Jingle Bells, Batman Smells, Robin lit an egg, and what different people thought about that, and like got different samplings of that, how it was different in different areas and all this. So, you know, the point is that is kind of analogous to evolution, that it's random-ish, but there's a mechanism of filtration that is present. And standing here where we are, we're not at the end, because there is no end goal for evolution. Evolution is still going on right now. You are one chain in it. You do not see where humans go in however many thousands of years. We don't know. It will change to adapt to the environment that we have, if we can. So take a look at basketball. And I don't know sports that well, but I do know that at one time, it was mostly white guys, and then some black guys, and then it was nothing but tall black guys, and maybe a couple white guys that could jump really high. And now it's like, that's the whole NBA. It's nothing but like tall black people. Why? Well, because black people are taller average than white. Why? I don't know. It just is. That's how it is. There are some tall white people, but, you know, not that many. So you couldn't have known when basketball started that the selection process would yield the result that it did. It was unplanned, but that's what happened. The Nets are X amount of height, so now people are well, taller equals better at the game, so of course they're going to get taller people, you know, or they have an advantage. It doesn't matter. Maybe you suck at dribbling, but you're tall, so you can, you know, reach further. You have a longer arm than the other person, so it doesn't have to give you complete advantage. It only has to give you a limited amount of an advantage. And then if everybody in your team is slightly taller than the other team, then that gives you some sort of advantage, which means you might win that game. And it's like, well, you can't just make that out of randomness, but yes, you can, it turns out. If you start with a random team and then you see, well, who has the stuff to make the shot every time and, you know, be a good teammate, that's the person that we're going to keep on, and the other ones we're not. We're going to get rid of the people that don't make, you know, good teammates. We're going to get rid of the people that aren't as good as the other people. And there's an evolutionary process at work there. You see this everywhere. Everywhere you can see this. You see this in phones and technology, because we humans mimic what nature already does. Now, the guy, he seemed to me, okay, so that's my analogy, was the drawing game. And I don't know, maybe it will help him to understand evolution, maybe not, no idea. So hopefully Answers in Atheism could send his friend that. I don't know. I think I don't know how good of an analogy it is, because, you know. But, okay, so my thoughts on this guy is he doesn't want to learn. He doesn't want to understand. And that's not fair for me to think that, but that is what I think. Because I don't hear okay, I understand that. All right, I get that's how that works. All right, now I understand that. Okay, let's move on to the next thing I don't understand. What I did hear was a lot of, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? What makes sense? Let's jump over to this analogy. What about the other? And it's like, dude, you're all over the place. Focus. One thing. Learn the one thing. And then once you understood that thing, then move on to the next thing. But he wants it so desperately. Well, it's got to be God. It's got to be designed. Like, you can believe whatever you want to believe, but set that aside for a moment and just learn what it is. Learn how evolution works. And you can say God did it. Fine. Doesn't matter. As long as you accept the reality that it is, at its core, what it is. Maybe God designed it to do all that, and it appears to be rather random and mutation-y to us, but it isn't. Maybe it had an end goal and we're it. I don't think so. But if you want to believe that, fine, as long as you don't deny science. And it seemed to me like he was going, well, it's either random or it's designed. I'm like, there's a false dichotomy there. No. And it's so complicated. And every time we see it so complicated. Then we have to explain away the complication in some elaborate manner. I'm like, no, we're not explaining it away. We're just explaining it. And that it's complicated isn't design. It's the opposite of design. Because design is simple. You want your thing as simple as possible. That's less things to fail. I'd also say that the design thing for me is just a turnoff because I'll be like, sure, I'll tentatively grant that we were designed. The designer's an idiot. Just a moron. I mean, we humans are now figuring out with CRISPR technology, they have figured out how to change DNA. They've done it in mice where they've made them live longer by altering the DNA. So all we have to do is some tinkering with our DNA and we could live longer. In fact, maybe we could even live indefinitely longer, at least in terms of age. In fact, if we manipulate DNA right, we could stop aging and reverse it and be whatever age we want to a limit within some reasonable limit. So, rewind me to 30. I'd like that, please. Or 18. Oh, man, that'd be great. Although I don't know what the limits are, but, because there'd be some downfall, I'm sure, to manipulating your DNA. There'd be some, if you started aging backwards every year from this moment on, that would be pretty good. 1 year younger every year. That'd be nice, and then it stops at some point because you'd have to stop it at some point. But why is it that we humans are beating the design of DNA in that we're making it work when it doesn't work right now in a way? And we're fixing it so that it works better. So we're better designers than whoever designed it in the first place. So, you're going to go with your designer. Your designer is dumb. Okay. You put the amusement park and the waste disposal plant on top of and next to each other. And you know what I'm talking about. And if not, I'll get graphic. I don't care. But so the whole designer thing, it just doesn't work when you're, in that sense. Maybe God got it started and didn't know that we would be the result. Maybe God allows for bad design, doesn't care that it's bad design or something. But these sound like wishy-washy sort of things. But usually my response to creationists is an attempt at a logical point, which, well, doesn't work, but I'll try. I still do it anyways. In that, if you want me to believe in your God, you have to accept biological evolution. You have to accept the age of the earth. You have to accept the age of the universe. You have to accept all science as we understand it. Because if you intertwine your God's existence with something that is pseudoscience, your God doesn't exist anymore. And intelligent design is pseudoscience. It is randomness. He kept saying luck. I guess you could say luck. Yeah, we got lucky. I guess. Whatever. And yeah, sure. But not everything got lucky because a lot of things died. There is a question of why does things work the way they work? Why is it that carbon connects to 4 things? It could be 5. It could be 20. I don't know. It's just that's what carbon do. There's no deeper why to it. That's just how it is. Carbon will connect to some things better than it will other things. Now, why is it that those things, when they are connected, they're able to do this? Just that's how it is. There doesn't have to be a deeper why to it. But when you believe that there's an intent, then there does have to be. It's like all this was planned. Yeah, you exploded stars to make heavier elements so that those elements could become stars so that they could explode so that more elements could be created, so eventually the earth could form, so eventually life could come about, so eventually after billions of years humans could arise, because that was the end goal. I don't know, it seems overly complicated to me. Just make humans. Poof. But why make us at all? Or why make us like this? Like, why this form? Why 2 arms and 2 legs and 2 eyes? Why the symmetry? Why not 1 eye or 10? Why 1 head? Why not 2 heads? What's my purpose that it's making me for in this particular shape? There isn't really any good theological answers to that, as far as I can tell. What designed God? And of course, this is always like, well, nothing designed God. God just always was. Well, couldn't you say that about anything? You could say, well, that's just nothing designed humans. It just always were, but nobody says that. Because we weren't designed. We are the result of slow change throughout time, modifications with descent, based on a filtering mechanism of what works and what doesn't. And like that game of draw this sentence and then make a drawing out of that sentence and it's passed to the next person and so on and so forth. You don't know going in what will or won't survive. And some things will survive well enough to make it, and others won't. And I guess the giraffe can feel lucky all it wants, but it was never intended to survive. We didn't know going in. So, I don't know. Anyways, that's all I got, I guess. Until next time, be skeptical. And after that, stay skeptical. Now I'm going to email this to Answers in Atheism. So I need to say something at the end for Answers in Atheism. Something silly. Oh, I know. Do not look up blue waffles. Don't look up on the internet in image search with safety off blue waffles. Okay. That's it. Later.